Hi, I'm Rashonda Cade. This is Rashonda's Reading Room. Excuse me. We are reading Hagar's Daughter by Pauline Hopkins. We are on chapter 7. 2 weeks had passed since Ellis left his home on the pretext of urgent business, but in reality to make necessary arrangements for an indefinite stay abroad. Ill news travels fast, and it was well known all over the plantations and in the neighborhood that the terrible discovery of Hagar's origin had broken up the home life at Ensign Hall. Save for St. Clair's presence, the hall had settled back into its old bachelor state, with one difference. In the mistress's suite, a beautiful, despairing woman sat day after day, with her infant across her knees, eating her heart out in an agony of hope and fear, waiting the reprieve from a living death that Ellis's return would bring her. Wow. Here was a woman raised as one of a superior race, refined, cultured, possessed of all the Christian virtues, who would have remained in this social sphere all her life, beloved and respected by her descendants, her blood mingling with the best blood of the country, if untoward circumstances had not exposed her ancestry. But the one drop of black blood neutralized all her virtues, and she became, from the moment of exposure, an unclean thing. Wow. If black blood is that powerful, I'm saying, why doesn't everybody want it? Like, if it can reverse decades of stuff, yeah, give me more black blood. This is crazy. This is crazy. And we're supposed to think it's crazy because it is, but like, oh my gosh. When I read things and they're like, this is what people really believed, I just think they can't. They can't have believed that. They told themselves they believed it. They acted like they believed it, but they couldn't have honestly believed that. They couldn't have. All right. Can anything more unjust be imagined in a Republican form of government whose excuse for existence is the upbuilding of mankind? Yeah, maybe something more unjust could be. Because that didn't actually happen. Like, one drop of black blood didn't actually neutralize all of her virtues. Just because you think black people can't have virtues doesn't mean being black neutralizes the virtues that you already have. What? Yes, I can think of more unjust things that could happen. These were sorrowful days for the Negroes who could not bring themselves to look upon their beloved mistress as one of their race, a share in their sad destiny. I get why they couldn't look upon her like that, because she was their mistress. Aunt Henny spent most of her spare time praying and coaxing Hagar out of the apathy into which she had fallen. Bless the Lord, I know Devment was on hand when Marse St. Clair done comed home. She called it. She said one morning to Marthy, last time he was here, old Mars, he bust a blood vessel in his head and never knowed a blessed thing for a month. Then he died. Wow. St. Clair gave his dad an aneurysm, and he was like unconscious for a month and then died. For that, he shoot him on to the college and beat the professor most to death. There's a cuss on that boy, show. How you think it comes so, mammy? I hearn tell from Aunt Di, who nussed Missy Ensign. See here, child, I don't know about telling a disresponsible gal like you family secrets, and if you goes to peating my words all round a plantation, I hope Marse Ellis whoop your back. Marthy rolled her eyes in terror and promised to keep her mammy's revelations as sacred as scripture. You knows dat no one never goes nigh the old summer house down there close to the wharf at the foot of the garden, don't you? Marthy nodded, and her eyes grew larger as she listened with bated breath for the ghostly story she was sure would follow. Just before Marse St. Clair was born, old Missy Ensign was setting in there, and a terrible thunderstorm come up and just raised James Henry with houses and trees and tore up everything. Old Miss so dare feared to move even one teeny bit of her little finger. While she sat there all white and trembly, the devil just showed his face to her and grinned. That's terrifying. Sure enough, devil, mammy? Whispered Marthy in awed accents. Her mammy nodded solemnly in reply. Old Miss just went into convulsions, and when they find her in dead faint, that night, Marse St. Clair was born, and if the devil ain't the daddy, then that old rapscallion never had a born servant in this sinful world. Wow, Okay, so the mistress Ensign, during the middle of a horrible storm, saw the devil. She fainted. St. Clair was born that night, and clearly the devil had to be his father, because why else would he have shown up? Mammy, what you think the reason the devil show himself to old Missy Ensign? The trouble with you is, Marthy, that you is the most quizzitive gal on this plantation. You want to know too much. But the old folks been here a long time say that old Mars get mad one day with Unc Ned and tell Overseer whoop 'em. Unc Ned conjure man, never been whooped in all he life. He just rub himself all over with goofer, put a snake skin round he neck, a frog in one pocket and a dry lizard in the other, and then he pray to the devil. Dear devil, I ask you to stand by me in this my trial hour, and I'll never desert you as long as I live. I's had the power, continue the power, make me strong in your cause, make me faithful to you, and help me to conquer my enemies, and I will try to deserve a seat at your right hand. Whew, okay. So Uncle Ned, um, let's see. So the master told Uncle Ned that he needed to get whipped, but Uncle Ned was a conjure man, and he got all his conjuring things, his goofer, his snake skin, a frog, a dry lizard, and he prayed to the devil and said, give me power, continue my power, make me strong in your cause, make me faithful to you, help me to conquer my enemies, and I will try to deserve a seat at your right hand. That, wow. Okay, so we got folks praying to the devil, conjure people. We've got it all in this book. As Marthy listened, an ashy hue overspread her face, and she asked breathlessly, did they whoop him? Bless your soul, gal, that was the afternoon, for they was gwine to whip him in the morning, and that very night the devil peered to Ole Miss, and Unc Ned never was whooped till day he died, never. He must have been a power, mammy, he certainly must. But the strangest part was this. At the very time Ole Miss seen the devil in the summer house, the overseer was in the barn, and he declared that over in the east corner he saw the lightning play, and while he looked, he see hell with all its torments, and the devil there too, with his cloven foot and a strutting bout like he knowed he was boss. The overseer was so scared that he run and he run and he run, and he never stopped running till he get plumb into Baltimore. Spec he knowed he longed to the devil. Course. And then he sent Omar's word to send him his clothes. Never live on that plantation again for twice your money. Money no deucement. Mammy, mammy. This in a whisper. Do you believe Miss Hagar got nigger blood in her? Course not, honey. Somebody round here done conjured her. That devil St. Clair, I spec. Now, Marthy, take that big silver tray of things up there to that po child, and you keep a pounding until she ope the dough, po little child. Well, that's interesting. So at least some of the slaves don't think she's black at all. They think she has a conjure on her. And speaking of when they were talking about the devil with his cloven feet. Oh, now I can't remember the name of the book. Oh, there is this book. It's funny to me. And it is about the devil was doing a poor job managing hell. So he got fired from his job. And as punishment, he got sent to Earth. So I think his name was Jeremy while on Earth. So it's a story about the devil and what his life on Earth was like. It is hilarious to me. I can't think of the name of that though. I'm pretty sure it was by a British author. And I mean, it might not be recent, like in the past couple of years recent, but it's more recent than something that was published in 1901. Anyway, I thought of that. If you come across that book, it's funny. Go ahead and read it. All right. Marthy obediently disappeared to execute orders, and Aunt Henny, with a dubious shake of her head, lifted up her voice in song. I'm a gwine to keep climbing high, see the heavenly land, till I meet dimmer angels in the sky, see the heavenly land. Dem pooty angels I shall see the heavenly land. Why don't the devil let a me be, see the heavenly land? Day succeeded day. There was little communication between the town and Ensign Hall. Inclement weather prevailed, for it was now the latter part of January. The fire of curiosity still burned fiercely among the rich planters over the Ensign horror, as it was called, but up at the Hall all seemed quiet. One bitter morning, St. Clair sat at breakfast, the picture of luxurious ease. He felt himself master of the situation already, and had assumed all the airs of ownership. Aunt Henny felt drawn sometimes to shy a plate at him, as she expressed it to herself. The odor of roses and lilies mingled pleasantly with that of muffins and chocolate. A man came striding up the avenue. It was Dr. Gaines, the family physician who owned a neighboring plantation. "Where is Mr. Ensign?" he asked of Isaac, who answered his clamorous call on the resounding brass knocker. I guess Isaac is there with St. Clair. I just wasn't expecting him to answer the door, but I guess he's got to be about some sort of business. Um, At breakfast, Massa, I must see him at once. I have news for him. As the doctor entered the room, St. Clair Ensign was leaning back in his chair, snapping his fingers at a hound stretched on a rug at his side. The doctor was unceremonious. "I regret to say that I come as the bearer of evil tidings." "Shall I bid Isaac set another plate, doctor?" "No? You have taken breakfast at this hour?" "You are a primitive people in this rural district, truly. You should mingle with the world as I have and become capable of enjoying the delights and privileges of civilized life. May I ask the nature of the news you bring?" The doctor was a kind old man, though somewhat brusque. He averted his eyes and answered in a low voice, "It relates to your brother. Mr. Ensign, when did Ellis leave home, and when was he expected back?" "My brother Ellis? He left home about 2 weeks ago. For what reason he did not state. I do not know when to look for his return. He may drop in unexpectedly at any moment." The doctor was preternaturally grave. "And you have heard nothing from him since?" "No, I have not." The doctor grew graver yet. "My dear sir, early this morning my boy Sam had occasion to cross the foot of your land where the remains of you." I just paused. It is his land, I guess, because he's an ensign, but you you don't know the place yet, St. Clair. Brr. Anyway, "My dear sir, early this morning my boy Sam had occasion to cross the foot of your land where the remains of the old wharf enter the stream, and there he stumbled upon a frightful thing, the dead body of a man." "Not a pleasant sight," said St. Clair as he helped himself to another hot cake. "Evidently. The body has been there 2 or 3 days. There is an ugly wound in the head that completely disfigures the face, and an empty pistol by the side for the body tells its own pitiful tale. St. Clair Ensign, that dead man was." St. Clair shifted uneasily in his chair as he looked the speaker in the eye, then started to his feet. "My brother? Your brother." To Dr. Gaines's eyes, the cold, pale face into which he gazed did not change, only the gaze sought the floor. "That is strange. Was he robbed also?" "No, a large sum of money is on the body, papers and his watch. Sam ran home to me, and I summoned help and was among the first to reach the spot." The hound leaped suddenly to his feet and began to howl. "Was it murder or suicide?" asked St. Clair in a calm voice. "That cannot be decided yet. Finding his valuables untouched and his hand frozen to his pistol seems to point to suicide. That will be determined at the inquest." Dr. Gaines turned from the window by which he was standing and said, "The remains of your brother are being brought home." A little procession of Negroes with heads uncovered advanced up the avenue, slowly, between the grand old beeches, their tread echoing in a solemn thud upon the frozen ground. A cloth was spread decently over the mangled face. In the silence and majesty of death, the master returned to his home. His unlucky life had come to a sudden close. In midnight solitude and shadowed by mystery, the curtain fell on tragedy. Suicide? I question that mightily. I'm sure I'm not the only one who was like, "I'm pretty sure St. Clair knew about this before the doctor showed up." I have no proof, just hunches. Let's see what the book continues to reveal. St. Clair advanced with a firm step to meet the bearers. There was no sign of grief in his face. The servants crowded the hall, standing in terrified silence, broken only by Aunt Henny's sobs and lamentations. St. Clair lifted the cloth that covered the dead face with a hand that did not tremble, under the curious gaze of Dr. Gaines. Mr. Ensign, said the doctor at length, your brother had a wife, or one whom we believed his wife, he corrected at St. Clair's negative gesture. Will you notify her of his death? She must be suffering anxiety concerning him. True, I had forgotten her, muttered St. Clair with a shrug of his handsome shoulders. No, no, you had not. Yes, doctor, you break the news to her. The doctor left the room. Presently there was a scream in a woman's voice as of one in mortal agony, an opening and closing of doors and a hurrying of feet, then silence broken only by the pitiful wail of a young child. There was an inquest at which Walker, the speculator, corroborated the evidence of St. Clair Ensign. How convenient! That the deceased was laboring under great depression at the time of his leaving home and of his avowed purpose to shoot himself as the shortest way out of his family difficulties. How convenient for them to concoct the story and then to corroborate it with each other with nobody else to dispute them. And if there was anybody else who could dispute them, that person would be black and would be legally unable to dispute the word of a white man. How convenient! Mm. This testimony, so clearly given, produced a profound impression upon the listeners. It was hoped by many that Hagar would testify, but they were doomed to disappointment. The pistol was well known to many friends, as well as to his servants, as the one Ellis Ensign always carried. The watch was the old-fashioned timepiece that his father had carried before him. The papers were legal documents made by the family lawyer and having no bearing on the case. Okay. I think we'll see about that later, too. Okay, we got 3 pages left. The jury rendered a verdict of suicide. Plainly, Ellis Ensign had died by his own hand. Okay. All right, jury. Was there a medical examiner? And what did they say? Like, didn't he have some sort of cut on him or something? There's an ugly wound in the head. Oh, okay. Like he shot himself in the head. All right, sorry. There was a stately funeral. St. Clair Ensign buried his brother with every outward mark of wealth and pomp. The servants moved about the house with red eyes and stealthy steps, while from the quarters the wind bore the sound of mournful wailing. It was a bleak night. The new master of the hall and the slave trader, now his inseparable companion, sat before the fire, consulting about the disposal of the slaves. I'm going to let them all go, Walker, and only keep a small working gang to till the ground and look after the hall. Just so, replied Walker as he folded a fat bundle of bills into his pocketbook and carefully replaced the same in his hip pocket. That's a sensible thing to do. It won't be 6 months from now before we'll all be fighting Yankees like mad, and then where'd your niggers be so nigh as this plantation is to Washington? Best be on the safe side is my idea. And there's the missus. At this moment the door opened unceremoniously, and Hagar came straight up to the 2 men seated before the blazing fire. Her dark eyes shone like stars, her face was white as the snow that covered the fields outside, her long hair hung in a straggling mass, rough and unkempt, about her shoulders and over her somber dress. A more startled apparition could not well be imagined. An exclamation broke from the lips of both men. I have come without your bidding, sir, for I have something to say to you, she said, addressing St. Clair without bestowing a glance to the man Walker. She cast a wild look around the sumptuous room. So you take your ease while he sleeps in his coffin. You need not frown. I do not fear you. Life has no terrors to offer me now. I can't imagine the terror of your husband dying, but life has some terrors to offer her. Oh my gosh. She towered above him as he sat crouched in his chair, and she looked down upon him with a wicked glare in her eyes. The question I have come to ask is this: St. Clair Ensign, do you believe that your brother died by his own hand? Most certainly, Ensign constrained his white lips to answer. You can lie about anything. Ellis was killed, murdered, shot down like a dog. What did the pistol prove? Nothing. His pockets had not been rifled. That proves nothing. Neither his great trouble brought to him by his marriage with me, a Negro, would have driven him to self destruction. He was murdered. A chill crept over the listeners. No one had ever seen the gentle Hagar Sargent in her present character. Murdered? Gasped St. Clair. Yes, she shouted. You are his murderer. He recoiled as if she had struck him a blow. Mad woman, you are mad, I say. Trouble has turned your brain. I mean, they called her mad when she was displaying grief. She's mad that she's displaying anger. My gosh, people think women are crazy anytime they show any sort of emotion. I mean, hysterics and hysteria and hysterectomy all have the same root. Like, why do people think women showing anything but placidity and pleasantness are crazy? No, we are people with emotions and we show them, but it makes us crazy. Oh. Mad woman, you are mad, I say. Trouble has turned your brain. It was you who drove him forth from a happy home. You who found your twin demon and brought home the story that broke his heart, ruined his life, and gained for you the wealth you have always coveted. I repeat, you are his murderer. St. Clair cringed. Then he sprang to his feet and seized her by the arm. This is too much for any man to stand from a nigger wench. You have sealed your own fate. Off you go, my fine madam, to the Washington market in short meter. I would have kept you near me and made your life as easy as it has been in the past, but this settles it. At what price would he have made her life as easy as it had been in the past? I can only imagine sex would be that price. Walker, he said as he turned to the speculator, you have my permission to take this nigger and her brat wherever it pleases you. Then he released her. Hagar eyed the man critically from head to foot. Selfish, devilish, cruel, she said slowly. Think not that your taunts or cruelties can harm me. I care not for them. No heart in your bosom, no blood in your veins. You are his slayer, and his blood is crying from the ground against you this very hour. So, another biblical reference, the blood crying against you from the ground this very hour, like with Cain and Abel, when Cain murdered his brother. And God said, the blood is crying out from the ground. It was more than he could bear. Again, he sprang from his seat and seized her arm. Walker took her by the other one, and between them they dragged her toward the entrance. Easy, easy, exclaimed Walker in a warning voice to St. Clair. Don't injure the sale for your property, ensign. St. Clair dropped his hold and again returned to his seat by the fire. There, my dear, you're a little bit excited, and no wonder. Go to your room and rest yourself, my dear. I recommend gin. Gin with a little hot water, sugar, and spice is very nice. Very nice for hysterics. That's what I'm saying. Very nice for hysterics and soothing, very soothing to a gal's nerves. Walker punctuated his remarks with many a little thump and pat on her back. Oh, how patronizing and condescending. With a defiant smile, Hagar paused on the threshold and said, It's the truth. You're his murderer, and in spite of the wealth and position you have played for and won, you have seen the last on this earth of peace or happiness. Then striking her breast, she added, As I have parted with the same friends, pleasant dreams to you, St. Clair Ensign, master of Ensign Hall. Woo! And that was chapter 7. My goodness, you've got all the things happening. So that was chapter 7 of Pauline Hopkins, Hagar's Daughter. I'm Rashonda Cade. Until next time.